Imagine if striking at the heart of an enemy's fuel could shatter their entire war effort. What if one bold move ignited flames that lit up the night sky over a nation? That's the shocking reality Ukraine unleashed on December 11th, when 300 long-range drones pierced through Russia's defenses like shadows in the dark, targeting oil refineries, airfields, and even an offshore oil rig. How did this distract and destroy tactic cripple Putin's machinery? The buzz of propellers hummed through the air, a constant reminder of impending chaos. Thick smoke began to rise, choking the horizon with the acrid scent of burning diesel clinging to the skin. Can Russia's defenses ever truly recover from such relentless erosion? Now, picture the panic as sirens wailed, forcing residents underground. Will Ukraine's escalation finally tip the scales? In the previous moment, Ukraine's philosophy centered on depleting Russia's energy reserves to collapse Vladimir Putin's war machine. Escalating through the latter half of the year with relentless strikes on refineries and air bases, their tactics grew bolder. In a groundbreaking night, the biggest strike yet scorched multiple targets across Russia, per a Kyiv Post report detailing the launch of the war's largest kamikaze drone barrage. Why did this assault feel like an early Christmas gift laced with fury? 300 drones zipped over a staggering 2,000-kilometer span, some paired with cruise missiles aiming for refineries, airfields, and a Caspian Sea oil rig, a first. The metallic tang of exploding fragments lingered in the air, blending with the earthy smell of unearthed soil from drone crashes. Have these innovations redefined warfare forever? As drones swarm like angry hornets toward Moscow, uncertainty grips the air. From Ukraine's strategic push to erode Russia's fuel lifelines, strikes intensified against refineries and military hubs. Now, in this epic operation, drones dashed toward Moscow not to strike but to deceive. According to the Kyiv Post, roughly a fifth, about 60 drones, headed for the capital, later clarified as over 100, forming a third of the total. Though no targets hit, their circling provoked defenses. What untold terror gripped Moscow as air defenses roared to life? Residents felt the vibration of alarms rattling through streets, rushing to shelters amid the bitter chill frosting breaths. The stench of fear mingled with exhaust fumes. Did this diversion truly divert fate? Shelters filled with whispered worries, while airports locked down, stranding thousands. Building on the Moskva decoy that diverted defenses and halted flights for hours, Ukraine's master plan shone through, with Russia fiercely guarding the Kremlin, Putin's frequent haunt. Past strikes on Moscow, like the March 11th barrage or those near Victory Day, heightened vigilance. This vulnerability allowed Ukraine to exploit focus elsewhere. Could one city's weakness unravel an empire? The rumble of jets scrambling echoed like distant thunder, leaving a sour taste of adrenaline. Hearts pounded against cold bunker walls. Will Putin's team ever plug these fiery leaks? Amid scattered ash, refineries awaited their doom. From Moscow's chaotic shields dropping, 240 drones slipped free to real targets. Ukraine shattered norms with 3 refineries and a fuel depot hit in hours. Kyiv Post noted the break from typical 2 to 3 patterns. Why did these repeated blows bleed Russia slower? Social media clips confirmed strikes in Samara, Ryazan, Saratov, and Volgograd regions, distances from 400 to 800 kilometers. Flames roared, searing the night with gasoline vapors stinging eyes and nostrils. Tactile heat radiated from burst tanks. Has Ukraine's strategy of iterative degradation sealed Russia's fate? Repair crews now toil endlessly, advancing Ukraine's strategy of swamping refineries repeatedly since early 2025. Shifting from isolated hits to floods of assaults, prolonged outages, cutting refining capacity from 5.3 to 5.5 million barrels daily to 5 million. Moscow Times highlighted November's 14 strike record. Why do these waves amplify the drain on crude sales? The roar of ignited fuel resonated, oil pools shimmering under moonlight. Sticky residues clung to firefighters' gloves. Could diminished exports starve Putin's ambitions dry? Depots burned, leaving shortages looming. Yet refineries weren't alone in Ukraine's longest reach. Drones ventured farther, scoring a historic blow on a Caspian Sea oil rig. Kyiv Post reported the longest-range attack at 1,500 kilometers, using Lyaki drones, push-propeller UAVs, with warheads up to 350 kilograms. 4 hits engulfed the Lukoil facility, producing 120,000 barrels daily. What sensory assault marked this oceanic outrage? Salt spray mixed with oily smokes. Waves crashing as engines droned overhead. Skin prickled from distant blasts. Did this breach shatter untouchable frontiers? Platforms now aflame, crude reserves in peril. Even as the Caspian flames danced, Ukraine's campaign intensified airfields. Strikes expanded to military sites, echoing past escalations on bases. How did these blows expose structural cracks? Turbulent winds carried the whine of drones evading radars. Exhaust bitterness seeped into soil. Will aviation catastrophes ground Russia's aerial dominance? Crews scrambled, equipment charred. Through it all, Ukraine's 2025 crescendo escalated effectiveness. Each strike larger, more precise, hammering energy foundations. Rhetoric hovers, can depleted reserves ever fuel retaliation? The grind of ceaseless raids wore on nerves, metallic vibrations lingering. Ashes blanketed fields. What ultimate collapse awaits if the flow doesn't cease? Shadows lengthen over an empire weakened. In the last moments, Ukraine's drones buzzed over Moscow without striking a single target. Circling like vultures, they ignited panic, forcing alerts to blare through the city and trapping thousands in shelters. Airports ground to a halt, stranding passengers amid echoing cancellations. Why did Ukraine unleash this feigned assault? Was Moscow's vaunted defenses humiliated by a mere diversion? As alarms pierced the chilly night air, residents clutched their phones, the vibration mirroring their racing hearts. Imagine the stench of diesel fumes from grounded planes, passengers' frustration simmering like unlit fuses. Ukraine's initial swarm, about 60 or more, didn't aim to destroy, it lured Russia's eagle-eyed defenses into a frenzy. Local voices echoed warnings, urging folks to burrow into bunkers as drone shadows danced overhead. None hit home, yet that was genius. A masterful ruse to distract, while the true force sliced into Russia's veins. This horde kept defenders scrambling, their radars humming with false alarms, as over 240 other drones veered toward real prey. Brilliant bait, exploiting Moscow's paranoia. Why such urgency? Because the capital cradles the Kremlin, where Putin often lurks. And Ukraine's past raids, like March's epic bombardment, dubbed the war's biggest by foreign eyes, or assaults timed for victory parades, had sown this dread. December 11th rode on those victories, twisting Rubu's fears. The vast, vulnerable heart of Russia trembled under perceived threats. Defenders poured fire skyward, sirens wailing, while Ukraine pivoted, sculpting a strategic coup. Russia's gaze fixed elsewhere, letting the real carnage unfold. Targets beyond count loomed, oil refineries first on the hit list. Wait, refineries aren't just refineries? Ukraine's pattern shattered that night. In a spree unlike any, 3 refineries and a depot ignited within hours. Breaking the rhythm of 2 or 3 in a go, per Kyiv Post insights. Military watchers, sifting social threads, confirmed the blows. Samara's blaze roared 800 kilometers from Ukraine, 500 miles of distant fury, drones skimming treetops to evade detection. Ryazan lit up, fuel seeping like wounded veins. Saratov erupted, wounded anew. And Volsky's depot? Torched 700 kilometers away, 435 miles of relentless reach. Some journeys stretched farther, secrets shrouded in strategy. Kyiv Post hailed nearly unimpeded flights, decoys shielding the assault. In Samara, eyewitnesses spotted 15 to 20 propeller hums, silent and stealthy, no defenses stirring. What does that reveal? Humiliation. Russia's shields, supposedly ironclad, gaped open. One drone glided low, rustling leaves audibly, dodging radars. Ryazan strikes scarred tanks, slashing output by 20 to 30%. Flames crackled, heat waves distorting the horizon. Yet, this wasn't random, these sites had been pummeling wounds, Samara's third since August, Ryazan's sixth from July. United 24 corroborated Saratov's hit via FPV drones, those gritty sentinels armed for precision carnage. Ukraine's tactic evolved brutally, no isolated jabs, but relentless waves. Hitting en masse, crippling repairs, crippling flow. Russia's refined fuels ebbed, gasoline scarcities choking vehicles, diesel droughts idling wars. A slow bleed on its lifeblood, month by month intensifying. Moscow Times spotlighted November's record, 14 hits, Orshin plant's 9.1 million tons capacity crippled. Daily output dropped, 5.3 to 5.5 million barrels have toward 5. After countless assaults, why can't Russia fend these winging threats? Surely a twist bruise and humiliation. Adding to refineries was no mere depot, but something unprecedented. Far-flung oils rigs in the Caspian, 1,500 kilometers removed, 932 miles. Kyiv Post detailed the shock, helicopters shuddering overhead. Lahi drones, propeller beasts with 120 to 350 kilogram payloads, 265 to 772 pounds, tore into Lukoil's platform. For hits set it ablaze, crude from 20 wells spewing fire and smoke, the air thick with acrid haze. Moscow Times affirmed the devastation. Lukoil's Filanovsky rig, a titan pumping 120,000 barrels daily, 6 million tons annually. Caspian crude, blended into Ural's blend for global trade, now erupted in chaos. U.S. energy sources nod to this blend's market pulse. What unpredictable havoc lies next in Ukraine's ever-escalating symphony? Could this unravel Putin's grip on power, turning energy fears into a full-blown existential storm? Witnesses flooded social media with proof, confirming Ukraine's bold hits on key refineries. Refining plants ignited across Russia's vast lands, including one in Samara, 800 kilometers away. That's 500 miles from Ukraine's front lines. A blaze erupted there. Similarly, FYPSKY's facility caught fire, 400 kilometers off, or 250 miles. And Saratov refinery burned too, 600 kilometers distant, roughly 380 miles. Drones also pummeled a fuel depot in Volgograd, 700 kilometers in, about 435 miles. Why did these attacks shatter Russia's defenses so easily? The real shock lies ahead, where some drones ventured even farther. But Kyiv Post reveals, almost every drone soared unchallenged toward their goals. Moscow's decoys succeeded brilliantly, sucking Russian senses away. In Samara, heart of the Sizran plant, eyewitnesses spotted 15 to 20 prop-driven attackers whizzing overhead. No intercepts at all. One drone footage showed it hugging treetops, evading radar scans. Despite silent defenses, FYPSKY faced a swarm too. Drones torched fuel reserves, knocking output down 20 to 30%. Aching loss. These sites? Old enemies. Hit repeatedly this year. Samara endured 3 blows since August, when Ukraine amped up its assault. FYPSKY slashed 6 times from July, each crash eroding Russia's strength. United 24 media confirms at least one slam on Saratov refinery, using EFFP-1 long-range drones. Before this dawn raid, Ukraine's shift in tactics humiliates Moscow. No more isolated pinpricks. Now relentless waves, forcing endless repairs, starving fuel supplies, strangling exports. Month after month, bleeding Putin's grip on energy. Can Russia ever reclaim its skies? Or will Ukraine's relentless innovation turn tides irreversibly? As another mystery deepens, what distant prize did those farther flying drones chase? And how did it set Russia's farthest frontier ablaze? Stay tuned. The Caspian Sea's secret inferno awaits. Your pulse racing yet? Imagine flames licking the waves. Ukraine's persistent drone attacks are rewriting the battlefield. Since July, these relentless strikes have targeted some of Russia's most vital oil facilities. The same refineries, places like Sky Refinery, have been hit repeatedly, with December 11 marking the sixth assault since summer began. According to the United 24 media, at least one attack on Saratov's refinery also confirmed Ukraine's reach into distant territories. These drone strikes aren't accidental or isolated, this is deliberate escalation. Some of Ukraine's most advanced long-range drones, known as FP-1S, have traveled over 1,500 kilometers, striking oil rigs in the Caspian Sea, like the Lukoil platform, igniting seabed wells with devastating precision. Imagine the roaring sound of propellers slicing through the air, the scent of burnt fuel mingling with the cold, sharp wind. These UAVs can carry explosive loads up to 350 kilograms, enough to turn giant rigs into smoldering wreckage. What truly shocks is Ukraine's new tactic: relentless, coordinated waves of strikes targeting Russia's oil infrastructure. No longer sporadic hits, each attack chips away at the country's oil production. Every blown-up refinery, every damaged depot, extends the downtime, increasing the strain on Russia's capacity to produce gasoline and diesel. As these facilities remain offline longer, shortages grow deeper, fuel lines stretch, prices soar, and Russia's allies feel the strain. In November alone, Ukraine set a new record, at least 14 drone strikes on refineries, overwhelming Russia's defenses. The Ofipsky plant near Krasnodar, with a capacity of over 9 million tons annually, was one of the main targets. The strikes have cut Russia's daily refining capacity from roughly 5.5 million barrels to just 5 million barrels, throttling their oil production. It's a slow but persistent drain, each new hit undermines Russia's most crucial resource. But even more astonishing, some drones were sent even further, targeting offshore oil rigs deep in the Caspian Sea, like the Lukoil platform. From over 900 miles away, these drones launched with terrifying precision, igniting seabed wells. The rig pumps out around 120,000 barrels daily, and now it's burning, its massive metal structure crackling as flames swallow steel. How did Ukraine manage such an audacious strike? What hidden technology powered these daring missions? Despite the frequency and scale of these attacks, Russia remains powerless. Their defenses fail again and again, their refineries, once considered almost impossible to penetrate, now stand on the brink of collapse. Ukraine's strategy is clear: weaken Russia's energy backbone, one refinery at a time. But will the relentless assault push Russia into collapse, or will they find a way to counter this new wave of courage and ingenuity? The battlefield is shifting, secrets are unraveling, and the true extent of Ukraine's daring campaign remains hidden beneath the flames and shadows of midnight strikes. Imagine the roar of flames devouring steel in the dead of night. Can you feel the heat rising from the Caspian waves, a fiery betrayal against Russia's frozen ambitions? What if one bold strike could cripple an empire's lifeblood, leaving oil giants choking on their own smoke? As Ukraine hammered 3 key refineries and a vital fuel depot in a relentless barrage across vast distances, blazes erupting in Samara, Fyodorovsky, Saratov, and Volgograd, they didn't stop there. Those attacks, repeated blows that keep facilities crippled longer each time, exposed Russia's defenses as woefully inadequate, drones slipping through like ghosts in the wind. But hold on, what if the real shock wasn't on land at all? Picture drones slicing through the chill air, far beyond the 500-mile trek to Samara. Ukraine aimed higher, or rather, deeper into uncharted waters. For the first time in this grueling conflict, they zeroed in on something untouchable: an offshore oil platform in the Caspian Sea. How could a rig pumping black gold from the seabed become a blazing inferno, and why now? The Kyiv Independent captured the drama in its gripping December 11 dispatch. This was no ordinary raid. The farthest assault slammed into an offshore oil production platform, deep in the Caspian, roughly 1,500 kilometers, or 932 miles, from Ukraine's likely drone launch points. At least 4 direct impacts, and suddenly, the Lukoil-owned structure, drawing crude from 20 undersea wells, erupted in flames. Orange tongues licked the sky, the acrid stench of burning fuel mingling with salty sea spray. Workers scrambled. Alarms wailing like banshees over crashing waves. Reports suggest Ukraine deployed Ludi drones for this audacious hit. These push-propeller unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, pack a punch. Each carries an explosive payload from 120 to 350 kilograms, that's 265 to 772 pounds of raw force. Enough to shred refinery gears, or, as here, ignite an entire platform in a cataclysmic blaze. Sensory chaos, the thunderous booms echoing across the water, hot metal groaning under assault, oil-slicked waves hissing as fire met foam. The Moscow Times backed the story, confirming at least 4 long-range drones nailed their mark in this oil sabotage spree. They pinpointed the target as Lukoil's Filanovsky rig, one of Russia's crown jewels in the Caspian sector it dominates. This beast churns out about 120,000 barrels of crude daily, totaling 6 million tons yearly. Feel the economic quake? That's Russia's vital export vein, blended domestically and sold as Urals crude. Flashback to a tense dawn years ago. I remember the salty tang on my tongue from Caspian breezes during a family boat trip. Calm waters hid underwater secrets, now twisted into a nightmare of fire and loss. Why does this strike twist the knife deeper? Because Urals crude fetched $52.34 per barrel on December 10th. Crunch the numbers. If that rig idles just one day, a conservative guess, Russia bleeds around $6.28 million. But what hidden costs lurk if repairs drag on, and Ukraine's drones keep coming? Picture a war where every explosion echoes Russia's financial agony. How mighty can a superpower feel when its lifeblood turns to smoke? Imagine the acrid stench of burning oil blending with the cold December air, fires raging unchecked as Putin's empire crumbles fuel for fuel. This strike wasn't just about power outages, it was a calculated drain on Russia's war chest. Ukraine's relentless campaign targeting energy has crippled Putin's machine, forcing Russia to divert resources and defend against these bold assaults. On December 11th, Ukraine escalated with its most audacious display yet, a symphony of destruction that left refineries ablaze and airports paralyzed. But the real twist? These attacks exposed Russia's vulnerabilities, turning their defenses into a desperate farce. Who could have predicted that 300 drones would unveil such chaos? Keep watching to uncover how Ukraine humiliated Russia with precision and flames. Recall how the initial 60 to over 100 drones swarmed Moscow, drawing air defenses into overdrive and confining residents to shelters. Airports locked down for hours, stranding thousands amid cancelled flights. This distraction tactic worked flawlessly, allowing 240 other drones to strike true. Building on that diversion, regret snaps as the real onslaught unfolds. What if Russia's vaunted air power couldn't stop unmanned invaders gliding through the night? Now, Ukraine exploits this weakness, expanding strikes to unprecedented depths. Crude oil prices hovered at $52.34 per barrel on December 10th. Calculate the sting, if a refinery halts for one day alone. Russia hemorrhages about $6,278,000. Drones, costing Ukraine around $200,000 each, turned this efficiency into agony. 4 drones hammered the target, inflicting that $6 million plus loss for a mere $800,000 investment. Is this the tipping point where Putin's oil empire implodes under its own weight? Suddenly, minor outlays morph into massive devastation. The flames still roared unmuffled by midday on December 11th, firefighters battling vainly against the inferno. Production ground to a halo path forced halt, derail potentials for days as assessments and repairs drag on. That $6 million could balloon into tens of millions. Pause and ponder, has Russia ever faced such humiliation from afar? This assault marks uncharted territory, not just another target, but a slap to the Caspian Sea's heart. The gloves? Torn off. Ukraine, scarred by Moscow's winter onslaughts against its own grids, retaliates by deeming any war-linked asset fair game. Glare at the audacity, first blow on Caspian oil hubs, signaling every Russian enterprise fuels the conflict. What chasm of error forced Putin's regime to underestimate this vengeance? Feel the tension rising, fires crackling like war drums. Imagine the warning delivered bluntly. Ceasefires? No. Ukraine declares all Russian holdings linked to the February 2022 invasion legitimate prey. Sensations clash, the distant rumble of impacts, the sickly sweet reek of petroleum seep fare, the earth vibrating under feet as platforms burn. Opponent feeding humiliation? Russia scrambles, unable to shield its distant assets. Its capital reduced to a decoy's playground. Unexpected twist, what if this Caspian blaze ignites global ripples, reminding allies of Ukraine's resolve? But will Russia rebound, or is this the ember that consumes its dominance? Luigtat acrid haze lingers. Nasal will Putin's grip loosen as Ukraine's drones redefine the battlefield? As infernos dance, what hidden strike pent awaits to shock the world? Imagine the collapse of Vladimir Putin's war machine as Ukraine drains Russia's energy lifeblood. That's the chilling strategy Ukraine embraced throughout much of 2025, pushing boundaries in the latter half to dismantle Russia's industrial might. Wave after wave of precise assaults obliterated oil refineries and key facilities, occasionally shifting to war hubs like air bases. These operations grew bolder, more devastating. Now, Ukraine has unleashed its most audacious blow yet. In a night of triumph, December 11th brought Ukraine's largest strike of the war, drones and missiles searing Russia from end to end, igniting fires across the nation. The Kyiv Post detailed it. Ukraine's armed forces launched their most expansive volley of kamikaze drones, targeting a vast 2,000-kilometer stretch, or about 1,240 miles, with 300 long-range drones and cruise missiles. They ravaged oil refineries, airfields, and for the first time an oil rig in the Caspian Sea. Drones buzzed toward Moscow, but not to strike, only to deceive. Around 60 to more than 100 drones circled the capital, sparking frantic air defenses. Residents scrambled to shelters, airports locked down for 8 to 10 hours, stranding thousands as 130 to 200 flights vanished. Moscow's skies echoed with alarms, the air thick with tension, that metallic tang of fear hanging heavy. It was a masterful distraction, forcing Russia to focus on these ghosts while 240 other drones slipped past to real prizes. Why did Russia fall for it? Because Moscow, home to the Kremlin and Putin himself, carries scars from past hits. Remember March 11th's massive assault nearby? Or strikes timed for Putin's victory parade? Russia knows the capital's vulnerability, pouring resources into illusions that didn't harm. Meanwhile, away from Moscow's chaos, Ukraine targeted refineries relentlessly. 3 cracked in hours, plus a depot, far beyond the usual 2 or 3 in a single night. Social media buzzed with confirmations. The Samara refinery, 800 kilometers away, erupted in flames. The same fury hit FYZHSKY and Saratov facilities, 400 and 600 kilometers distant, slashing production. A depot in Volgograd, 700 kilometers off, felt the sting too. Drones navigated unseen, skimming treetops in Samara, no defenses stirring. The cold night air carried wafting smoke, fuel tanks roaring as explosions sparked. FYZHSKY suffered a 20 to 30% hit, its production crippled. These repeated assaults, Samara's third since August, FYZHSKY's sixth since July, wear Russia down. No longer isolated strikes, now a barrage, repairs dragging on. Oil output dips, demand soars, exports falter. As the Moscow Times noted December 1st, November shattered records with 14 refinery hits, capacity dropping from 5.3 to 5.5 million barrels daily to 5 million. Even repeat targets like Omsk's 9.1 million-ton plant crumble. Russia's oil empire crumbles slowly, unable to counter these buzzing menaces. What if Ukraine's hunger for disruption led them not just to refineries, but to the very heart of Russia's aerial terror? That's the shocking twist, turning fire on fuel into a symphony of strikes on oil's ocean empire. Continuing from Ukraine's relentless refinery raids. Their December 11th crusade expanded to unprecedented horizons. Not content with land-bound flames, Ukraine pierced the Caspian Sea's depths, striking a Lukoil-owned oil rig, the Filanovsky rig, for the first time. A staggering 1,500 kilometers from launch, drones slammed in, at least 4 hits setting it ablaze. Pumping from 20 seabed wells, this colossus produces 120,000 barrels daily, blending into Urals crude for global trade. The Lyachi drones, propeller-driven UAVs with 120 to 350 kilogram warheads, rained destruction. Explosions thundered across the rig, waves slapping against metal husks as crude spilled, acrid smoke choking the salty air. Vibrations shuddered through the platform, alarms wailing amidst the chaos. Confirmed by the Moscow Times, it signaled a new era. Ukraine deems any Russian oil tie a war bargain. Though impressive, December 11 defied patterns. Where past nights focused on oil or arms, this mingled both. After Caspian rig fires, drones scattered to airfields, Ryazan, Voronezh, Ivanova, near Ukraine's borders. But Ukraine pushed further, assaulting Mamsk in the Arctic, far from Kremlin's grasp. Each hit landed true. In Mamsk, a cratered runway barred takeoffs, engines idling uselessly. Ivanova's hangars exploded, likely crippling Su-34 jets, flames licking hangars in the frost. Voronezh's defenses ignited, exploding in a hail of sparks, leaving the base exposed for future raids. Ryazan? Its fuel depot detonated, bursts echoing, blasts stripping jet fuel supplies. The night air crackled with distant roars, earth trembling from impacts, a bitter chill biting defenders' skin. Was Ukraine just crippling skies, or sowing seeds for total aerial dominance? That lingering question haunts Russia's command. Could airfield silence herald lost heavens? How will Putin explain skies now out of reach, humiliation looming as Ukraine redefines war's bounds? Yet, whispers reveal deeper intent. Ukraine struck not only rigs and hangars, but hints at severing missile launch paths, countering Russia's glide bomb assaults from home skies. Fighter jets, once terrorizing from afar, now grounded. The message pierces: every Russian asset fueling war is fair game, oil, air, all exposed. No sanctuary left, as Ukraine twirls the knife deeper into Russia's core. But what unforeseen weapon lies next in this escalating shadow war? Alpha Nu Theta Rho Omega Pi Iota Sigma Tau forged a razor edge, sparking global shudders as Moscow's invulnerability shatters dramatically. Ukraine's daring strikes are crippling Russia's heart, making Putin's defenses tremble. In the shadows of early winter, Ukraine's unmanned warriors howl through the night, igniting flames that scorch the soul of an empire. How far will this desperate dance of drones push a nation to its knees? Picture the roar of engines silenced, the acrid stench of burning fuel clinging to the air, the ground quaking under secondary blasts that shake homes miles away. Ukraine's plan? Target those airbases ruthlessly, hitting assets now exposed without their shields. In Ryazan, a fuel depot erupts in chaos, explosions echoing like thunderclaps, secondary fires dancing in orange fury. Jets are grounded, their vital liquid life stolen away. Why does Russia stay silent on the havoc outside Moscow? Is their pride crumbling faster than their targets? Shifting focus, Ukraine eyes these bases to ground Russia's aerial marches, denying them the skies for launching nightmares upon Ukraine's lands. Fighters like the Su-34, favored for spitting missiles and bombs from afar, are shackled. A runway marred or fuel gone means no takeoff, no assault. This chokes Putin's machine, mirroring how refinery hits starve his war of resources. Strikes here weaken his punches, pulling back the tide of glide bombs and rockets that have battered Ukraine's defenses. Between October 5 and 12, Russia unleashed nearly 1,400 glide bombs, 92 missiles, plus 3,000 drones, a storm overwhelming the skies. Could Ukraine's new barrage be the twist that turns the tables forever? As MQ-9 Reaper-like drones pierced the night, Russia reacted in classic denial. The Kremlin muffles the truth of sirens wailing in Moscow, shelters filling with frightened hearts, airports locked down in a frenzy of cancelled flights. But can they hide the burn of Ukraine's triumph? What surprising betrayal lies in Ukraine's next move, eroding Russia's aerial empire séance by séance? In the aftermath of Ukraine's sweeping aerial assault, Russia was quick to deny the true extent of the damage. Official statements downplayed the attack, but the evidence spoke loudly. Windows shattered, the air buzzed with the roar of failing defenses, and the whispers of citizens whispering about the alarms still ringing in Moscow streets. Yet, while the Kremlin stayed silent about the real toll outside the city, the damage inflicted elsewhere told a different story. Ukrainian drones had decimated oil refineries, attack after attack pounding Russia's vital energy sources. The Russian Defense Ministry issued a vague statement, claiming they shot down nearly 287 drones out of the roughly 300 launched. But those numbers don't add up. How could they? Analysts knew the truth. Between 60 and 100 drones had targeted Moscow as a decoy, deliberately sent to distract while the Real strikes hit combative targets across Russia. The refineries, fuel depots, and even a massive offshore oil rig in the Caspian Sea, these had suffered severe blows. Russia's claims of minimal damage fell flat amid the rising chaos. This assault shattered Russia's narrative. It defied supposed U.S. declarations that Ukraine had no cards left, claims made back when the forces of power argued Ukraine's weakness. Now, recent events suggest otherwise. Evidence shows Ukraine standing strong, striking with precision, and forcing Russia into a defensive spiral. Recent reports reveal that Ukraine's drones traveled unimaginable distances, jets of fire and wine through the sky, aiming at targets once thought untouchable. The largest attack yet. A fiery ballet of 300 long-range drones crossed over 2,000 kilometers. They struck oil refineries, airbases, even a giant offshore oil rig in the Caspian Sea, the first such target in the entire conflict. Imagine the deafening hum of engines, the scent of burning fuel lingering in the cold air. These UAVs, flying low and fast, skimmed treetops and sea waves, evading radar and defenses. They arrived with brutal efficiency, leaving behind smoldering wreckage and chaos. Could Russia rebuild what's been destroyed? Or is this the beginning of a crippling collapse of its critical energy infrastructure? Ukraine's masterstroke isn't just about destruction. It's a calculated move to erode Russia's economy, cut off vital fuel supplies, stretch their defenses thin, and undermine their capacity to wage war. Each strike pounds a nail into Russia's oil industry, slowly squeezing its power. The world watches in silence. What will Russia's next move be? Will they retaliate with more force, or crumble under the weight of their own vulnerabilities? The true shock lies ahead. This daring escalation could mark the turning point, either igniting a devastating retaliation or exposing the cracks in Russia's fortress. The question remains, can Ukraine keep this relentless offensive alive? Or will Russia finally find its footing amid the wreckage? As the smoke clears, one thing is certain. The war is entering a new, terrifying phase, and nothing will be the same again. The tide is turning in the ongoing conflict. Just a few months ago, the global perception was that Ukraine was on the brink of collapse. Headlines declared Russia's dominance, and many believed that Ukraine's resistance was futile. But that narrative is crumbling fast. On December 11, Ukraine delivered a staggering blow, shattering previous assumptions. Massive drone attacks swept across Russian territory, striking key military and oil facilities, dismantling Russia's war machine piece by piece. The world watched in shock as Ukraine's long-range drones soared through the sky, some flying over 1,500 kilometers, more than 900 miles, to destroy vital infrastructure in the Caspian Sea region. Imagine the deafening roar of the drones as they pierce the silence, engines humming like thunder. The smell of burning fuel and scorched steel fills the air, before the fires burst into towering flames, illuminating the night. Ukrainian military strategists had crafted a master plan, deploying 300 advanced UAVs. Some were kamikaze drones, crashing into targets with devastating precision. Others acted as decoys, circling Moscow and triggering the biggest air defense response Russia had seen in months. The initial wave of around 60 drones aimed at Moscow was just a distraction, a smokescreen, to divert Russian defenses while the real assault ensued elsewhere. Moscow responded with frantic alerts, sirens wailing through the city streets, civilians rushing to shelters. Yet, none of these drones hit their intended targets in the capital. Instead, they created chaos, stranded travelers, cancelled flights, and shuttered airports. It was a psychological attack, a statement that Russia's great fortress was vulnerable. Meanwhile, Ukraine raged forward, hitting Russia's energy core with relentless strikes on refineries and fuel depots. 3 large refineries, from the Samara region to Saratov, were engulfed in flames, their critical processing units crippled. The relentless assaults dismantled Russia's ability to refine and distribute fuel, crippling its war effort and economy. Each strike was more devastating than the last, causing factories to shut down and shortages to deepen. But the most shocking part? The Ukrainian drones ventured even further, destroying a colossal oil rig in the Caspian Sea, some 900 miles from the target. The Lukoil rig, pumping 120,000 barrels daily, was set ablaze after at least 4 drones targeted its operations. It marked Ukraine's first direct assault on offshore oil infrastructure in this war, an audacious move that stunned analysts worldwide. What does this mean for Russia? Their navy, once mighty in the Black Sea, is now retreating in fear. Russian warships hide in port, unable to match Ukraine's expanding reach. Russia's defenses are strained, exposed, and faltering in the face of Ukraine's cunning and technological edge. The world faces a stark question: could this be the turning point? The evidence suggests Ukraine is no longer merely defending, it's striking back with force, altering the battlefield forever. If Ukraine can reach far offshore and hit oil rigs, what else are they capable of? The nights are no longer safe for Russia's leaders or its war efforts. The collapse of the Russian energy sector looms, and with Ukraine's relentless conviction, the entire balance of power is shifting. Is this the beginning of the end for Russia's dominance? Or is it just the prelude to an even greater surprise? In the darkness, Russia's mighty war machine begins to crumble. Could Ukraine's next move finally bring victory? The answers lie in the shattered fires and the quiet yet deadly skies over the Black Sea and beyond.